Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Good evening, Winnipeg Jets fans. My name is Ty Dilello, and welcome to the Game Over Winnipeg post-game show for tonight's frustrating game between the Winnipeg Jets and the Los Angeles Kings. The Los Angeles Kings defeated the Winnipeg Jets 4-1 as the Jets fall to 18-5 on the season. Very frustrating game on a lot of different fronts that we will get into. As we go here, the legendary Anze Kopitar opened the game scoring. Just a minute or two into the contest, quick power play goal. In the second period, Philippe Danault scored to put LA up 2-0. And the Jets got some life with the power play goal from Gabriel Velarde. When they scored just 9 seconds into the power play, and it seemed like the game, one of those games where the Jets kind of clawed their way back. In the third period, kind of the back-breaking goal was a fluky redirection off Hayden Fleury's skate. Kevin Fiala got credited for the goal to make it 3-1. The Jets kind of desperately pushed a little bit after that, to no avail. And then Adrian Kempe scored in the empty net to make it 4-1, and that's how the game would end. Connor Hellebuyck was excellent again, 29 saves for him, while the Jets did not test David Riddick much at all. David Riddick only had to make 13 saves on the night. A game where the Jets couldn't muster anything offensively, couldn't break through the Kings' defensive system. So kind of before we get into all that jazz, we'll talk just quickly about Hyperdrive Hockey, do a quick ad read. Check out the flagship show of Game Over Network on the Game Over Network channel. Hyperdrive Hockey is all things hockey across various leagues in multiple countries. Whatever it is and wherever it is, Max, Daphne, and Kev have you covered for all of your hockey news with a steady dose of fun and fan engagement. You can find Hyperdrive Hockey on the Game Over Network YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts on the Hyperdrive Hockey page or at just our website, thegameovernetwork.com. Check it out. We got I think a couple podcasts come out every week. It's good stuff. Back to tonight's game. It really feels like games like these are always frustrating. We're not able to muster anything offensively over the course of 60 minutes. It felt like the last three games you could say the Jets played. I think, I don't know how to put it. Like, we're getting kind of the other teams. It seems they're getting the other team's very best game. That we're kind of playing up against, and that's going to be the case a lot of the time. When you're the top dog in the league right now. The number one team in the league. Everyone's kind of gunning for you. Everyone kind of gets up. For those matchups. When you're playing against the Jets, it seems this year. And these last three games against Nashville, Minnesota, and LA have certainly felt. We saw a really good, a Kings team a couple nights ago gave up 7 goals to San Jose, and yet against the top team in the NHL, they only gave up 14 shots. It's quite the turnaround. Obviously you play down to it's just a very common thing in sports. At that level, you kind of play down to teams below you at times. The Kings, they certainly played up to the Jets tonight and shut them down in kind of every which way. And then we're able to score on their chances, and they were firing the puck from all over tonight, something the Jets weren't able to do. And kind of for the third straight game, the Jets just got outplayed. The Minnesota game, would have went a different way if Hellebuyck didn't stand on his head. But kind of just like the Nashville game, just like the Minnesota game, the Jets as a whole, we're not the better team. And this result, kind of speaks for that. I think. I think there were. I was gonna try to make some positives out of it. There were certain players' games, that we liked. The Jets would have liked tonight. Thought Dilello had another good game on defense. I thought Rasmus Kupari was excellent again. He actually had a penalty shot in the second period. It's kind of become like an oddity these days. You don't see penalty shots too often anymore. But yeah, Rasmus Kupari was kind of hauled down midway through the second period. Had a penalty shot. Put a pretty good move on Riddick, but just kind of ran out of real estate in front of the net and couldn't raise the puck over his pad. With his last deke. But he gave himself a chance to score at least. His game was excellent. We'll talk more about him later in the show here. The Jets didn't bring out the line blender tonight, but they did make one change. Kind of midway to the later portions of the second period and the third period. They switched Alex Iafallo from the fourth line to the second line with Cole Perfetti. Cole Perfetti's struggles as of late are well documented. He has not looked good at all. He's not playing like a top six player. He's not playing like an NHL player as of late, and I think the coaching staff finally wanted to do something about that. And they demoted him to the fourth line and gave Alex Iafallo a bump up. Alex Iafallo kind of had the hot hand against Minnesota, and but he wasn't able to generate a boost either to that second line, who have been very quiet 5-on-5. Perfetti did ring one off the post earlier in the game. It seemed like that might have been a chance where he could have kind of broken his goalless drought, but got foiled by the post. It's been kind of rough sledding 5-on-5 for the Jets. For the top six at least, for sure. The Perfetti, or I guess now Iafallo, Nemesnikov, Ehlers line, doing nothing. Ehlers has been quiet, and then Connor Scheifele, Velarde, again haven't producing anything 5-on-5. For the third straight game, since Pittsburgh. So it's kind of been Jets are kind of in a bit of a funk, bit of a slump. Playing against some really good hockey teams though. We're kind of playing some of the top. LA's not a top team, but they're in the playoff spot, and I think the majority of the teams the Jets have played the last month, I would say, are in playoff spots. It doesn't get any easier. This weekend we got Vegas on Friday night on the road, and then we got Dallas Sunday afternoon on the road. To close out this kind of road stretch. So the games are just going to get tougher for these next two, and the Jets really need to kind of pull their socks up if they don't want to, lose two more games here. They certainly need to play a lot better than tonight. Just going to the chat here. I was just going to kind of mention that. Pele Lindbergh in the chat says the Jets need to call up Lambeau if Scheif is injured and needs to sit. If it's a short-term injury, Scheif is not helping the team at all. Yeah, I wrote on I tweeted on BlueSky, during that third period. All the Jets, kind of beat writers, kind of one after the other. As soon as one of them mentioned the Scheifele's injured, every other reporter I noticed kind of hopped on and made a tweet about that. I think a lot of fans, everyone's kind of noticed that Gabriel Velarde's taking the face-offs for Scheifele right now over the last 5 games or so, and doing a very good job. Might I add, he's winning a lot of face-offs. And people just kind of thought at first, okay, whatever, he's just taking face-offs, but it's clear that there's obviously like an underlying reason. Scheifele is obviously playing through an injury. I hope he's playing through an injury. Because hopefully that's the case, because he's playing god awful right now. He's not playing like a number one center should be. If you want to look how a number one center should play, you look at Anze Kopitar. At 37 years old, he's doing unbelievable things still, and we'll talk about him in the last period of the show, as I got a story there to talk about Anze. Shifley. Pelly, thanks for kind of typing about, writing about that. As I alluded to in my post about if Shifley is injured, is it something he can manage and play through? And don't just play through. Like, you gotta play at a good enough level where you're still producing and you're not costing the team, wins and goals if you're able to play in the lineup. Maybe the best case for Shifley is to go home and rest for a few days. Sit the last 2 games out of this road trip out and try to, if it's something that he just needs rest, he can rest up and then come back for St. Louis on Tuesday night back in Winnipeg. I and Pele here. I like this. I want to see Brad Lambert with the Jets. I also think that the Jets are so razor thin at center here that you kind of need a top 6 talent to kind of slot in either Shifley's spot or in the top 6 on Nemesnikov's line. Because after Shifley, our depth is Nemesnikov, Lowry, and Kupari. So, and then Gustafson's in the press box. So aside, really none of those players are top 6 talent worthy. I know Nemesnikov's playing on the second line, but he's definitely not a second line player, not for a Stanley Cup winner, that's for sure. So if Shifley is hurt and needs to rest a little bit, then I'd like to see Brad Lambert get called up to the Jets. I'd like to see him play. Give him some top 6 minutes and see what he can do. Because he can't be worse than Shifley and Cole Perfetti right now. Like, there's just no way. And you got to break these young guys in at some point. Whole game. In his last game with the Manitoba Moose. He's a player that hasn't been maybe putting up as many points. He's got 7. I think, is it 9 points maybe in 13 games, something like that. But a lot of the people that watch the Moose are saying how more attentive Brad Lambert is to the two-way game this year. He's playing good without the puck, good with the puck, and whatever. I'd like to see Brad Lambert. So let's we'll see if that happens. We'll see if the post game, if the media asks Scott Arniel about Shifley. I doubt he'll divulge anything about an injury, but anyways, let's hit another ad read. We've kind of gone on for a bit of a spell here. LaRouche, Game Over Network is an independent production focused on community, inclusion, and quality people. If you're interested in supporting the Game Over Network, we have crowdfunding options available. In the description of this episode, you'll find a link to our Patreon page. And we're also working on a page through LaRouche, which is a crowdfunding platform for companies originating in Quebec, which is why I never heard of it before, because I'm in Winnipeg. For LaRouche, we're aiming to raise $15,000, and if we hit that goal, we'll gain access to government grants that will allow us to employ more people. So if you have any ideas for what you'd like to see as giveaways from these crowdfunding efforts, please let us know in the comments, on Twitter, Instagram, our Discord server, or the BlueSky app, which is kind of the new Twitter. A lot of our Game Over hosts and people with our network here have kind of migrated over to BlueSky. I'm on there lots. I still call it tweeting. I was tweeting lots about the game and about what the Jets were doing, etc. So if you're on there, you can find us there as well. And yeah. All right. Next segment here, I wanted to talk a little bit about someone who's been kind of one of the, I guess I'd call it a nice surprise this season. That's Rasmus Kupari. He's kind of his play has underrated at times, but he's really becoming quite the solid fourth line center. This was something that he's kind of playing like how the Jets, I think, expected him to. When the team made the deal for Velarde, Iafallo, him, and a second-round pick, which turned out to be Swedish prospect Alphonse Frey. There's been a lot to like from Rasmus Kupari's game this year. He's got, I think, 2 goals and an assist. He's quick. He's shifty. You saw him draw 1 or 2 penalties tonight. The Jets didn't capitalize on the power play, but he's drawn quite a few penalties this year for the team. He's got some good hands. Like, he's making some good passes. He's really playing solid hockey on that fourth line with Barron and Iafallo. Last game, he set up Iafallo for one of, I think, Iafallo's 2 goals. He's very... I can't say enough good things about Rasmus Kupari, and I didn't expect to. I was kind of ready. I think a lot of Jets pundits were ready to kind of write off Rasmus Kupari. After he had a very bad season last year before a year-ending injury. I think he had however many games, 30 games or so with no goals, 1 assist or whatever it was. Wasn't good with the puck, wasn't smart. In his own zone, didn't seem like he had an offensive brain at all. And then this year, in training camp, he, to his credit, Rasmus Kupari came out and played like I think he did in LA towards his time there, where he was he was a physical player. He was a good 2-way, third, fourth line player for LA, and he's just adds to the Jets' depth now. You don't have to worry. Like, there's been no worries when Kupari's on the ice. He's making his line mates better. He's generating. I don't think that he's necessarily gonna move up in the lineup too much. I don't see him as a top 6 player. Maybe he can play on that third line. If there's an injury, I don't see him overtaking Mason Appleton on that line. I think the Jets are pretty married to the Nino, Lowry, Appleton third line. But Rasmus Kupari has definitely carved out his spot on the team, and firmly has that grasp over David Gustafsson, who's kind of waiting in the wings for an opportunity, but he's not going to get that opportunity in Rasmus Kupari's spot. We all know what David Gustafsson is and what he isn't. David Gustafsson, can be a serviceable NHLer at times, but he's not breaking into this Jets, top 12 at the moment. So if Gustafsson goes on waivers, I don't think that he would get claimed. I'm also not worried if he does. There's a lot of David Gustafssons out there. They're a diamond. They really are. So in closing, very happy with Rasmus Kupari. Would have liked to see him bury that penalty shot, but he's been great nonetheless. Let's do another ad read. Game on Winnipeg, which we have not seen yet. I've been reading these ad reads all year long, and we got nothing to show for it. So, Game Over, what you're watching right now, has you covered after the game. But in order to get ready to watch the Jets, you've got to get your game on too. So, Game On Winnipeg is a short-form daily news podcast covering everything you need to know about the Winnipeg Jets. Debuting soon. You can get all your Jets news in under 10 minutes, Monday through Friday, on the Game Over Winnipeg YouTube channel, and in podcast form, which you can find at thegameovernetwork.com/pages/Winnipeg. I was talking today with Harrison Lee, who's going to be, starting up the Game On Winnipeg, shows during the week. And he said he will be doing them. He is going to try to start them soon, but doesn't know when. So there we go. I think we're about 2 months into the season, and we're the only Game Over network that doesn't have Game On yet. So there you go. We also have nobody really watching these shows that I'm doing right now, so I can kind of talk about whatever, and no one's really listening or talking. It seems like. I see we got one viewer right now, and if you're there, feel free to chat. I'm happy to kind of riff with somebody back and forth. Because I got a great story I'm about to tell here. Got a great story. Anze Kopitar, the Renaissance man with the LA Kings, he had 1 goal, 1 assist tonight. He's really turning back the clock. He's got, I think, he's up to 27 points in 23 games this year, leading his team in points as a 37-year-old. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He'll get in right away. Just a legendary, one of the greatest players of all time. Someone who doesn't get enough love. On the West Coast, if he was playing for a Toronto, a New York Ranger, etc., he would be considered, one of the GOATs in hockey. I feel like, and it's not because he blows people away offensively. He's so good two-way. He's the prototypical perfect hockey player. That's just been so good for so long, and so a little bit of a story time, I guess. I've been writing about hockey for a long time now, since about 2011, since I kind of graduated high school. One of my big early, I guess, breaks, I would say, was when I started writing for the IIHF, the International Ice Hockey Federation. I would do stories, profile, features on international hockey players from smaller countries. And I also kind of cover World Juniors, World Championships, Olympics, the Division I World Championships, Division II, and kind of players from these lesser countries. And now, to preface, I was always a big Anze Kopitar fan. From as soon as he got drafted, I liked the Kings. I liked Kopitar. He's from Slovenia. A very small country, a hockey country, etc. And then the first book I ever wrote, Hockey Hotbeds, was a book about hockey towns around the world. So one of the hockey towns that I wrote about in the book was Jesenice, Slovenia, which is where Anze Kopitar hails from. So I obviously I wanted to, interview Anze Kopitar